It's a little after 4, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting, the October 6th meeting of the Salina City Commission to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Vanier.
Here.
Commissioner Jelka.
Here.
Commissioner Larson.
Here.
Commissioner Peck.
Here.
Commissioner Perney.
Here.
I'd invite everyone to stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll now have time for a citizens forum. It's a time for citizens to come before the commission to speak on a topic that is not on the official agenda. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak? If not, we'll go on to awards and proclamations.
Item 4.1, the day of October 15, 2008 as Disability Mentoring Day in the City of Salina. Sharon Luca will read the proclamation.
Proclamation of the City of Salina, Kansas. Whereas more than 1 million people with disabilities have entered the labor force since the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, and whereas as taxpayers, consumers, and workers, people with disabilities are contributing to our society and to their own fulfillment of the American dream. And whereas new generations of young people with disabilities are growing up in Salina, Kansas, graduating from high school, going to college, and preparing to participate in the workplace. And whereas job seekers with disabilities, regardless of age, are striving to attain economic independence through self-sufficiency and gainful employment. And whereas both students and job seekers with disabilities have the right to maximize their potential by making the most of their intellect, talents, and abilities in an environment free of physical, programmatic, and attitudinal barriers. And whereas Disability Mentoring Day provides an opportunity for students and job seekers with all types of disabilities to gain insight into career options by spending part of their day in the workplace, shadowing an employee as he or she goes through a normal day on the job. And whereas employers from private, governmental, and nonprofit sectors may benefit from mentoring people with disabilities as a way of learning about the experience of disability, developing lasting relationships with disability community leaders, and recruiting new and emerging talent for meaningful internship and employment opportunities. And whereas these efforts are made possible through a broad partnership with the American Association of People with Disabilities and a dedicated local team of organizers from businesses, nonprofit organizations, school districts, and government agencies. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, John K. Vanier II, Mayor of the City of Salina, Kansas, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, October 15, 2008, as Disability Mentoring Day, and encourage all citizens to recognize the enormous potential of people with disabilities and to work toward their full integration into the workforce. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the great seal of the City of Salina, Kansas, to be affixed this 6th day of October 2008. John K. Vanier II.
Ms. Luca, are there special events to take place?
Yes, local businesses are mentoring 100 students from local high schools in the morning, and then in the afternoon they will gather to hear speakers with information on their experiences in the workplace of disabled persons.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a signed copy of the proclamation for you.
Thank you.
We have no public hearings or items scheduled for a certain time, so we'll go on to the consent agenda.
Item 6.1, approve the minutes of September 29th, 2008.
Are there any additions or corrections?
Mayor Venier, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. There is no development business. We'll go on to administration.
Item 8.1, award a contract for the West Diamond Drive Improvements Phase 1, project number 06-1593.
Mr. Stack?
Thank you, Mayor Venier. We have a project that we had a successful bid on last Tuesday for the West Diamond Drive Improvements Phase 1. It's about a quarter mile of concrete street and drainage improvements. We had 3 bidders, and the winning successful bidder was Smoky Hill LLC, and they were about 5% below the engineer's estimate. We did get 9-inch concrete pavement for $39 a square yard, which is very good. And the storm drainage, we did go into a little detail on the background here with the storm drainage. Because this has been a project that's been around for a little while to negotiate how to do the drainage in this area, and we came up with a plan to actually get adequate drainage in this area and actually reduce the assessment quite a bit. The fiscal note down here has, I guess, goes into detail about the assessments and who's responsible for what, and we're still working on getting the right-of-way and easements to construct the improvements, but we're very close.
Did you say $39? Has the price just
A
gone
square
down
yard.
quite a bit?
It's a
square yard.
It's a square yard,
Yeah.
and that's very, very good.
Is that okay?
It's 9-inch concrete pavement, and that's actually as good as we've gotten with asphalt in the last month. But
Yeah.
again, that was what we talked about a little bit last week. So we were very happy to see the bids on this job. It's very encouraging.
Any other questions of staff?
One of the things that you mentioned on here was that one of the properties had ownership out of state, and I think I remember that from past studies. It was hard for me to figure out this drawing with all the dots and lines and dashes. Are
Okay.
we going around that property then, or how did that become resolved?
Dan, you want me to try that one?
I'd love
I-
it.
I
Mike's
don't-
has
I don't-
lots
I
this is
assured
before your
Dan
time.
I would
This is
help him
before your
out. That's
time.
right.
Yeah.
He'd help me out a little bit.
Dan mentioned that as the project progressed, we tried to redesign taking into account the drainage issue. And so that's exactly what he was referring to. In dealing with that property owner out of state and water rights in terms of natural flow and otherwise, we were able to come up with a design that didn't go on the property in question.
So you're going around?
We are not installing any permanent improvements across that property. We are
Okay.
continuing to discharge water as if it were as natural flow, not as
Okay.
if, but as natural flow.
Okay, I gotcha. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mike.
Any other questions of staff? Thank you, Mr. Stack. Is there
Thank
any
you.
public comment? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I move that we award the contract for the West Diamond Drive Improvements Phase 1, project number 06-1593 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to award the contract for the West Diamond Drive Improvement Phase 1, project number 06-1593 to Smoky Hill LLC in the amount of $620,422.75. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0.
Item 8.2, resolution number 086559, suspended administrative enforcement of certain requirements under Chapter 8 of the Salina Code relating to licensure of certain specialty contractors.
Mr. Hobby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor and Commissioners, the City of Salina in 2007 have adopted in our municipal code, a contractor licensing program. This program resulted over a year and a half of discussions between the Building Advisory Board and various contractors within our community. Chapter 8 of our city's Salina Code refers to two different sections. One section would refer to the licensing of the contractor and any reprimands that have to do with any contractor licensing. The other section of Chapter 8 refers to building codes themselves. So I want to make sure there's two different distinctions here. One of Chapter 8 says building codes. The other is the actual code for the licensure of all the contractors. This past several months, the Building Advisory Board has been in discussions with multiple decisions have not actually been come to a complete decision yet, and we'd like to ask that you consider Resolution 086559, asking us to put a resolution that would enforce certain licensure on specialty contractors. The Building Advisory Board for the last almost 6 months now has been under review of the licensing for the city of Salina. We've also had several discussions with contractors throughout the summer who have asked us to review some of our licensing programs. And this past week in the Community Development Forum, we had several people ask us to also review what we do as far as our specialty contractor licensing within the city. We prepared alternative ideas for the general contractor for the last 3 months for the Building Advisory Board, and nothing really has been solidified at this point to bring to your decision. We felt that if you will look at this Resolution 086559, it will direct city staff to suspend the administrative enforcement of our current Salina Code, the requirements relating strictly to the specialty contractors performing work under a general contractor. This limited suspension will not extend to any code requirements relating to licensure of any general contractor, any skilled trades contractor, or any registered contractor in the city. This suspension will not eliminate the need for a general contractor to pull a permit or notify us of all the skilled, specialty, or registered trade contractors that will be working underneath his license, but it will allow the general contractor to be in complete charge of the project. If you will, we ask for your support for Resolution 086559 and direct city staff to suspend some administrative enforcement of our current Salina Code, strictly referring to the licensure of specialty contractors performing work under a general contractor. I and the administration would be standing for questions if you would have them.
Questions of staff?
Specialty is roofing, flooring. What were all those? There was a category on them. I meant to go on the website today to look that up. I know it was in one of our packets a while back, but I can't remember. There was a list.
There is quite an extensive list of specialty contractors. They would be framers or erectors. They would also be roofing contractors, masonry contractors, specialty fire sprinkler contractors, specialty fire alarm and communication contractors, a demolition contractor, a sign contractor, a right-of-way contractor, and a swimming pool contractor.
Correct. I remember that.
This is only while they're working under the auspices of a general contractor.
Correct. Okay.
If I may, I'd like to offer two clarifications. You also mentioned some applications that would be considered a registered tradesman, and that was an item that came up in discussion as well. But the focus of this suspension is specialty contractors, as Gary delineated. The other categories of work, they would need to be a registered tradesman like they currently are, no testing requirement, just registration and insurance. The other thing that I would add is I think the conclusion of the last Building Advisory Board meeting was to provide city staff direction similar to what this administrative suspension would be in terms of drafting an amendment and bringing it back to the Building Advisory Board. In the intervening time, we had the development forum and were asked by a member of the Building Advisory Board whether we could expedite that by doing this resolution in administrative suspension. So I think, while I can't speak for the Building Advisory Board, the intent is that this is an interim step to accomplish what the Building Advisory Board will be considering and recommending to you shortly.
And commissioners will work hard to communicate this, get it out, and hopefully the news media will get this out as well, and we need to work with them to make sure that the message is clear, who it impacts and who it doesn't, and the fact that it addresses that confusing question that came up. And hopefully, government doesn't always work too fast. This is a pretty quick turnaround, but we think it makes sense, and it was a good suggestion.
Mr. Schrag did use the word shortly. Roughly what
time frame do you have in mind?
Well, that'll teach me to use that word.
In more calendar-esque terms, you know.
The Building Advisory Board meets next week, so staff is preparing the wording for their consideration. Assuming that they concur and make the recommendation, then we should be able to bring it back to you probably in a week or two following their meeting.
Oh, I was hoping this would go on until after the next April new city commission. Okay.
They meet weekly?
Monthly.
Oh, once a month?
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions of staff? Public comment.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm Don Mars, 2035 East Iron. I'm also the chairman of the Building Advisory Board, but I'm not here on their behalf. I've read the resolution that you have. I concur with that. I believe that the Building Advisory Board, as well as various stakeholder groups in the community, home builders, architects, and engineers, are looking at other areas that we're going to be asking the Building Advisory Board to consider being brought back to you for some further consideration. One of those being Chapter 17 in the Building Code. This resolution doesn't deal with that. That chapter has to do with special inspections. The current code has a number of things that the building official can do in those areas, and I think for the most part those have been put on the table and are not strictly being enforced as the way they could. But you know, if they were to be, I think that you know, our approach is to try to come to some conclusion as far as how Chapter 17 should be enforced in Salina, Kansas. I've spoken with Mr. Gage, and I think he understands that there's some work that needs to be done there, and I think that that's going to happen as well. So there's going to be a number of things I think that will be brought back to you in the future, one of which will be this clarification on the specialty contractors working under a licensed general contractor, and I believe the current resolution you have before you does address that. So,
Refresh my memory, how many people sit on your board?
there's 11, I believe.
Okay.
11 members, and it's made up of an architect. There's 2 engineers. There are skilled tradesmen. We talk about specialty versus skilled. The skilleds are mechanical, electrical, and plumbers. We have a realtor, and we have a member at large, I believe, is how the Building Advisory Board is made up.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other public comment? I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
I got a comment I want to make before we do anything about this. I got a call earlier today from the contractor, or the plumber that serves with Mr. Mars on the Building Codes Advisory Board, and he asked me, first of all, to support this resolution, which I'm going to. And he also asked me to put out a plea for more attendance at the Building Codes Advisory Board meetings on behalf of the contractors. And I thought that was an important thing because we have, by and large, followed all the recommendations of that board up here. And I know the part of the meeting last Wednesday night that I went to, there were numerous people that came up and criticized the city for these licensing requirements. And I thought to myself, you know, it's a lot easier to criticize the city than it is to criticize your fellow contractors who are serving on that board on a volunteer basis, I might add. And especially folks like me that don't work in that area specifically, we rely on that board for their advice. And I know that the plumber that called me today said that frequently they would be making major decisions on the recommendations with only 1 or 2 people there. And so I would certainly want to sound that call for more attendance at those meetings because we rely on that board's advice. And having said that, I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 08-6559, suspending the administrative enforcement of certain requirements under Chapter 8 of the Salina Code relating to the licensure of certain specialty contractors.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance 08-6559, suspending administrative enforcement of certain requirements under Chapter 8 of the Salina Code. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. And I'd like to thank the Building Advisory Board for all their work on this.
Mayor, I move to recess into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss with legal counsel matters subject to the attorney-client privilege for the reason that public discussion of those matters would waive the privilege and adversely affect the city's interest in the matters, and reconvene in this room at 4:40.
Okay. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn into executive session. Do you anticipate any action?
We do not.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We're in executive session.